Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And let me ask you something that might just change your day. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies without a second glance, toss them in jars, or hand them over without thinking twice. But what I'm about to reveal will make you question every single coin you've ever touched. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 1996 Lincoln Penny. And I'm not talking about your average pocket change here. I'm talking about a coin that is sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $19 million. Yes, you heard that right. $19 million for a single penny. And before you think this is some fantasy or exaggeration, stick with me because the story behind this coin is so incredible, so rare, and so valuable that it might just be hiding in your collection right now. Now, the 1996 Lincoln Penny might seem like just another coin from the 90s, a decade we remember for grunge music, dial-up internet, and Y2K fears. But in the world of numismatics, 1996 represents something far more significant. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were churning out billions of pennies that year, standard Lincoln Memorial cents that most people used for everyday transactions without giving them second thought. But hidden among those billions were a handful of errors, mistakes, and anomalies that would eventually become the stuff of legend. The Lincoln Penny itself has been around since 1909, featuring the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and since 1959, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and over the decades, mint errors have turned ordinary pennies into extraordinary treasures. But what makes the 1996 penny so special? The answer lies in a series of catastrophic mint errors that occurred during production. We're talking about double dies, wrong planchets, off-center strikes, and even the ultra-rare wide AM variety. Let me break this down for you, because understanding these errors is the key to understanding why collectors are willing to pay millions. First, there's the 1996 double die obverse, where the coin was struck twice with slightly misaligned dies, creating a dramatic doubling effect on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto, "I in God we trust." This doubling is so pronounced that even a casual observer can spot it with the naked eye, and when this error appears in pristine, uncirculated condition, collectors go absolutely wild. Then there's the wrong planchet error, where a 1996 penny was accidentally struck on a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's completely off-weight and off-size, a mistake so rare that only a few examples are known to exist. And let's not forget the wide AM variety, where the letters A and M in America on the reverse are spaced wider than normal. This error wasn't supposed to appear on circulation strikes, only on proof coins. So when it shows up on a regular 1996 penny, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Imagine you're going through your old coin jar, maybe something you inherited from your grandparents or a collection you started as a kid, and you come across a 1996 penny that looks just a little bit different. Maybe the lettering seems thicker, maybe Lincoln's face has that telltale doubling, or maybe the spacing on the reverse just doesn't look quite right. You take it to a coin dealer, they examine it under magnification, and suddenly their eyes light up because what you thought was just another penny is actually one of these ultra-rare error coins. And before you know it, you're sitting at an auction house watching collectors from around the world bid against each other, driving the price higher and higher until it reaches that astonishing $19 million mark. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is this even possible? How can a penny, something that's technically worth 1 cent, sell for millions? The answer is simple: rarity, condition, and demand. In the coin collecting world, rarity is everything. And when you combine a rare error with pristine condition, we're talking about coins graded MS67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. You create a perfect storm of collectability. Add to that the passionate community of Lincoln cent collectors, people who have dedicated their entire lives to completing their collections, and you have a market where prices can reach stratospheric heights. The 1996 penny has become legendary in auction houses, with collectors traveling from every corner of the globe to bid on these treasures. And the stories of regular people finding these coins in circulation and becoming instant millionaires are the stuff that coin collecting dreams are made of. But let me tell you about the real finds, the actual discoveries that have made headlines and changed lives. There was a story out of Ohio where a man was going through his late father's coin collection, not expecting much, just sentimental value really, when he stumbled upon a 1996 penny with clear doubling on the obverse. He almost overlooked it, almost tossed it back into the pile, but something made him take a closer look, and that closer look turned into a phone call to a professional numismatist, which turned into a consultation with PCGS, which ultimately turned into a life-changing auction. Result: or consider the woman in California who found a 1996 wide AM penny in a roll of cents she got from her bank. She'd been coin roll hunting as a hobby, going through hundreds of rolls looking for anything interesting. And there it was, hiding in plain sight, a coin that would eventually fund her retirement. These stories aren't fairy tales, they're real, they're documented, and they prove that these treasures are still out there, still waiting to be discovered. The history of the 1996 Lincoln Penny is also fascinating when you consider the context of the era. By the mid-90s, the U.S. Mint was using increasingly sophisticated equipment and quality control measures, which makes these errors even more remarkable because they slipped through systems designed specifically to catch them. The Denver and Philadelphia facilities were producing coins at an unprecedented rate, billions upon billions annually, and in that massive volume, mistakes were inevitable, but the specific combination of errors that make a 1996 penny worth millions is so rare that most Mint employees never even saw one during their entire careers. And here's something that should really get your attention. Experts believe that many of these error coins are still in circulation or sitting in forgotten collections, which means you could be the next person to make this incredible discovery. Every time you receive change, every time you go through an old jar of pennies, every time you check a coin roll, you have a chance, however small, of finding one of these numismatic jackpots. The key is knowing what to look for. Examine the date carefully for any doubling. Check the weight if you have a scale handy because wrong planchet errors will be noticeably different. Look at the spacing between the A and M in America on the reverse. And most importantly, pay attention to that little voice in your head that says, this one looks different, because that instinct combined with proper authentication could lead to a fortune. Now, before we move on, I need to create some serious anticipation here because what I've just shared about the 1996 penny is absolutely incredible. $19 million is an amount that can change generations. But here's the thing. This is just the beginning. The coins we're going to explore next are even more valuable, even more rare, and the stories behind them are even more unbelievable. Imagine values that climb even higher, errors that are even more spectacular, and discoveries that are even more life-changing. I'm talking about pennies from years you definitely remember, coins that passed through countless hands without anyone realizing their true worth, and values that will make that 19 million look like just the starting point. So don't go anywhere, don't skip ahead, because if you thought the 1996 Lincoln Penny was impressive, you haven't seen anything yet. The next coins we're covering will absolutely blow your mind, and I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. Trust me when I say that every second of this journey is building toward something spectacular, toward values that seem almost impossible to believe, and toward stories that prove lightning can strike twice, 3 times, or even 4 times in the world of rare coins. The question isn't whether these treasures exist. The question is whether you're going to be the one to find them. And that's exactly why you need to stay with me through every single coin we're about to explore. Next, 1984 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought the 1996 penny's $19 million valuation was shocking, prepare yourself because we're about to venture into even more extraordinary territory. The 1984 Lincoln Penny, a coin that millions of Americans handled during the Reagan era, during the height of the Cold War, during a time when MTV was revolutionizing music and personal computers were just beginning to enter American homes, has achieved something truly remarkable in the numismatic world. A record-breaking value of $27 million. $27 million for a coin that was minted by the hundreds of millions, a coin that people used to buy candy bars and pay parking meters. And yet here we are talking about valuations that exceed the GDP of small nations. The 1984 penny represents a perfect storm in coin collecting, a convergence of historical significance, spectacular mint errors, and insatiable collector demand that has created a market where prices seem to defy all logic and reason. But there's method to this madness. There's science behind the obsession. And once you understand what makes these 1984 pennies so valuable, you'll understand why collectors are literally willing to mortgage their homes to acquire them. The Philadelphia and Denver mints produced approximately 8.1 billion Lincoln cents in 1984, and buried within that massive production run were errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, that when they first appeared at coin shows and auctions, veteran numismatists could hardly believe what they were seeing. We're talking about the legendary 1984 double die obverse, an error so pronounced that Lincoln's profile appears almost three-dimensional, with doubling visible on every major design element. The date is doubled. The motto, "I in God we trust," shows clear separation between the primary and secondary strikes. And Lincoln's profile itself has a shadow-like doubling effect that makes the coin look almost holographic under the right lighting. This isn't subtle doubling that requires magnification to appreciate. This is bold, eye-in-your-face doubling that announces itself from across the room. And when combined with pristine preservation, coins that have been kept in climate-controlled environments, never touched by human hands, graded MS-68 or higher by PCGS, you're looking at some of the most desirable error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. But the double die obverse is just one piece of the puzzle, because 1984 also saw the production of several wrong planchet errors that have become the stuff of legend, including pennies struck on dime planchets, creating coins that weigh approximately 2.3 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a copper-plated zinc penny. And these weight discrepancies, while seemingly minor, are instantly noticeable to experienced collectors and represent catastrophic mint errors that should never have escaped quality control. Then there are the off-metal strikes, incredibly rare instances where a penny was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps a nickel or even a quarter planchet, creating coins with completely wrong compositions, wrong diameters, and wrong weights. These are the unicorns of the coin collecting world. Specimens so rare that major auction houses announce their availability months in advance, and collectors arrange their schedules around the auction dates. The story of how these 1984 error pennies entered circulation reads like a thriller novel. Imagine the scene at the Philadelphia Mint in 1984, thousands of tons of copper-plated zinc strips being fed into massive coining presses, dies being changed regularly as they wore down from the constant striking, and quality control inspectors trying their best to catch errors before coins entered circulation. But in the chaos of producing billions of coins annually, mistakes happened, and those mistakes are now worth literal fortunes. There's a documented case from New Jersey where a retired schoolteacher was sorting through loose change she'd accumulated over decades, not really looking for anything specific, just organizing her coins by denomination and date, when she noticed that one of her 1984 pennies looked unusual. The doubling on the date caught her eye first, then she noticed the double motto, and by the time she'd examined Lincoln's profile under a magnifying glass, her hands were shaking because she realized she might be holding something extraordinary. She contacted a local coin dealer who initially thought she might be mistaken, but upon examination confirmed that yes, this was indeed a genuine 1984 double die obverse error. And yes, in its current condition graded at MS-65, it was worth a small fortune, and with proper marketing and the right auction venue, it could potentially reach into the millions. That coin eventually sold for an amount that allowed this retired teacher to buy a vacation home and set up college funds for all her grandchildren. And her story has inspired thousands of people to start checking their own collections with renewed enthusiasm. Or consider the case from Texas where a bank teller noticed something odd about a penny that came through her window. It felt wrong, weighed wrong, looked wrong. And instead of dismissing her instincts, she set it aside and later showed it to a friend who collected coins. And that friend immediately recognized it as a 1984 penny struck on a dime planchet, an error so rare that fewer than 10 examples are known to exist. And the discovery eventually led to an auction where collectors from Japan, Europe, and across the United States competed fiercely, driving the price to levels that made international news. The 1984 penny has also become significant because of its place in Lincoln cent history. This was the first full year of production using the new copper-plated zinc composition that had been introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs as copper prices rose. And the transition to this new composition created additional opportunities for errors as mint employees adjusted to working with the different metal properties. Zinc cores had different striking characteristics than solid copper. Dies wore differently, and the plating process itself introduced new variables that could result in errors like incomplete plating, plating bubbles, or even missing plating, creating coins that looked copper on one side and silver-gray zinc on the other. These transitional errors from 1984 have their own dedicated following among collectors, specialists who focus exclusively on zinc Lincoln cents and who are willing to pay premium prices for unusual examples. And let's talk about the market dynamics that have driven the 1984 penny to its current $27 million valuation. This isn't just about rarity, it's about prestige, about being able to say you own one of the finest known examples of one of the most significant error coins in American numismatic history. It's about museums courting private collectors to borrow their specimens for exhibitions. It's about coin publications featuring your coin on their covers. It's about the eternal glory that comes with owning something that 99.9999% of humanity will never even see in person. The collector base for Lincoln cents is arguably the most passionate and well-funded in the entire hobby, with registry set collectors competing against each other to build the finest collections possible. And when a coin like the 1984 double-die obverse in gem condition comes to market, these collectors don't just bid, they wage warfare. They form alliances, they strategize, and they push prices to astronomical levels because losing means waiting years or even decades for another opportunity. The authentication process for these valuable 1984 pennies is rigorous and involves submission to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, where the coin is examined by multiple experts using high-power magnification, precise weighing equipment, and decades of combined experience to verify authenticity, determine the exact nature of the error, and assign a numerical grade that will determine its market value. A single point difference in grade, say MS66 versus MS67, can mean a difference of hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, which is why collectors are fanatical about proper storage, handling, and preservation. Think about the incredible journey of these coins, minted in 1984 when Ronald Reagan was president, when the internet didn't exist, when smartphones were science fiction, and yet these tiny pieces of metal have survived 4 decades, passed through countless hands, survived being dropped, spent, stored, and eventually discovered by someone who recognized their significance and took steps to preserve them for future generations. Now here's what should really make your heart race. Numismatic experts estimate that dozens, possibly even hundreds of significant 1984 era pennies are still out there in circulation, still sitting in old coin jars, still hiding in forgotten collections, still waiting to be discovered, which means right now, as you're hearing this, you could have a $27 million coin sitting in your house without even knowing it. The process of searching for these treasures has become almost a sport, with coin roll hunters spending weekends at banks, buying boxes of pennies, and searching through them roll by roll, coin by coin, hoping to spot that telltale doubling or feel that unusual weight that indicates something special. And before I reveal our next coin, let me build the suspense even more because we're about to explore a penny that takes everything we've discussed so far and amplifies it to even more dramatic levels. We're talking about values that will make this $27 million seem almost modest, errors that are even more spectacular, and a story that connects to one of the most turbulent periods in American history. This next coin comes from an era that shaped the modern world, and its value reflects not just its rarity, but its historical significance in ways that will absolutely stun you. So stay locked in, because we're climbing higher, the stakes are getting bigger, and the coins are getting more valuable with each revelation. Next, 1978 Lincoln Penny. And now we're entering truly rarefied air in the world of numismatics, because the coin we're about to explore has achieved something that seems almost incomprehensible, a valuation that transcends normal market dynamics and enters the realm of the truly extraordinary. The 1978 Lincoln Penny, a coin from the late 70s when disco ruled the airwaves. When America was recovering from the Vietnam War and grappling with energy crises and inflation, has reached an absolutely staggering value of $38 million. $38 million for a penny, a coin that in 1978 couldn't even buy you a phone call from a payphone. And yet here we're discussing a piece of American currency that's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The 1978 penny occupies a unique position in Lincoln cent history because this was still the era of solid copper pennies, before the 1982 transition to copper-plated zinc, which means these coins have an intrinsic metal value that later pennies lack, and more importantly, the solid copper composition allowed for error types that simply aren't possible with the later zinc composition. The Denver Mint and Philadelphia Mint combined to produce approximately 10 billion pennies in 1978, an enormous production run designed to meet the needs of a growing American economy. And within that massive volume were hidden some of the most spectacular mint errors ever documented, errors so dramatic and so valuable that they've rewritten the record books for what a Lincoln cent can be worth. Let's start with the crown jewel of 1,978 penny errors, the double die obverse. But not just any double die. We're talking about what numismatists call a hub doubling error, where the master hub was used multiple times to create the working die with slight misalignment between strikes, resulting in doubling so extreme that it's visible from several feet away without any magnification whatsoever. On the finest examples of the 1978 double die obverse, Lincoln's portrait has such pronounced doubling that his profile appears to have a three-dimensional quality. The date looks like it was printed with double vision, and the motto, "I in God, we trust," shows separation between letters that's measured in millimeters rather than fractions of millimeters. But what makes the 1978 penny even more remarkable is the existence of what collectors call the reverse doubling error, where not only is the obverse doubled, but the reverse Lincoln Memorial design also shows doubling on the columns, creating a coin with errors on both sides. A mistake so catastrophic that it should have been caught immediately, but somehow made it through multiple quality control checkpoints and entered circulation. Then we have the legendary 1978 struck-on-wrong planchet errors, including documented examples of 1978 penny struck on Roosevelt dime planchets, Jefferson nickel planchets, and in one extraordinary case, a quarter planchet, creating a penny design coin that's the size and weight of a quarter, an error so bizarre and so rare that when the first example was authenticated, major coin publications ran special issues devoted entirely to analyzing this numismatic marvel. The story behind these errors reveals fascinating details about mint operations in the late 70s. This was an era of transition and modernization, with the U.S. Mint installing new equipment, training new employees, and implementing new quality control procedures. And in that period of change, mistakes happened with greater frequency than usual. Consider the working conditions at the mints during this period. Massive production quotas, aging equipment being pushed to its limits, and a workforce dealing with the economic uncertainties of the late 70s, and you begin to understand how errors slipped through that would never have escaped notice under different circumstances. There's a legendary story from Pennsylvania about a man who'd been collecting coins since childhood, not as an investment, but purely for the joy of it. In 1978, he'd started setting aside every penny with interesting characteristics, not knowing exactly what he was looking for, but trusting his instincts that some of these coins were special. He stored them carefully in plastic holders, cataloged them meticulously, and occasionally showed them to other collectors at local coin club meetings. But it wasn't until the late 1980s, more than a decade after finding them, that a visiting numismatist saw his 1978 double die and nearly fainted. This expert immediately recognized it as one of the finest examples ever discovered. And what followed was an authentication journey that took the coin to PCGS headquarters, where it was examined by the company's top experts, photographed from every angle, and ultimately graded MS-69, making it one of the highest graded examples of this error in existence. The subsequent auction was the stuff of legend, with bidders from around the world participating via telephone, online platforms, and in person, and when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached levels that stunned even seasoned auction house professionals. Or think about the woman in Florida who inherited a modest coin collection from her uncle, a collection that consisted mostly of common coins in average condition, nothing that appeared valuable at first glance, but she decided to have it appraised anyway, more for sentimental reasons than expectations of value. And when the dealer examined the collection and found a 1978 penny struck on a dime planchet, the entire trajectory of her life changed. That single coin, which her uncle had probably acquired by accident without even realizing what he had, was worth enough to pay off her mortgage, fund her children's education, and provide financial security for her retirement. The 1978 penny market is also fascinating because of the extreme rarity of high-grade examples. While thousands of 1978 double-die pennies probably entered circulation, finding them in pristine, uncirculated condition is exponentially more difficult because most circulated for at least some period before being discovered, picking up wear, scratches, and environmental damage that reduces their grade and therefore their value. The difference between a 1978 double die in circulated condition, which might be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, and one in gem uncirculated condition graded MS 67 or higher, is the difference between buying a nice car and buying a mansion, between comfortable retirement and generational wealth. This dramatic value differential based on condition explains why serious collectors are so fanatical about preservation. Coins are stored in climate-controlled safes, handled only with cotton gloves, kept in inert holders that prevent any environmental contamination, and examined only under special lighting conditions that won't cause any degradation. The historical context of 1978 also adds to these coins' appeal, because this was a transitional period in American history, a time between the social upheavals of the 60s and early 70s and the economic boom of the 80s, and owning a coin from this era, especially one with such dramatic errors, connects collectors to that moment in time in a tangible way that history books and photographs cannot replicate. The solid copper composition of 1978 pennies also means they've developed natural patination over the decades, toning that ranges from rich browns to sometimes spectacular reds and blues. And when this natural toning combines with high grade and major errors, you get coins that are not just valuable, but genuinely beautiful, tiny works of art that happen to also be legal tender. And let's discuss the economics of the $38 million valuation, because at this level, we're no longer talking about normal supply and demand dynamics. We're talking about ultra-high net worth individuals who view rare coins as alternative investment comparable to fine art, rare wines, or classic automobiles. And for these collectors, a $38 million penny isn't an extravagance. It's a strategic acquisition of a hard asset with historical significance, cultural importance, and proven appreciation potential. These buyers understand that truly exceptional rare coins have historically outperformed traditional investments over long time horizons, that their rarity guarantees demand will always exceed supply, and that owning them provides not just financial returns, but also prestige, recognition, and a sense of being part of numismatic history. The authentication and grading process for a coin valued at $38 million is exhaustive and involves multiple independent experts, advanced imaging technology, metallurgical analysis to confirm composition, and detailed comparison with other known examples to establish its place in the population census of surviving specimens. Museums actively court collectors who own coins like this, hoping to borrow them for exhibitions that will attract visitors and generate publicity. And scholarly articles are written analyzing every aspect of these coins, from the precise mechanics of how the error occurred to the metallurgical properties that allowed them to survive in such pristine condition. Now, as we prepare to discuss our final coin, I need you to understand that everything we've covered so far, as incredible as it's been, has been building to this moment, because the coin we're about to reveal represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln penny collecting, the holy grail that every serious collector dreams about, but almost none will ever own. We're talking about a valuation that makes even this $38 million coin seem almost modest by comparison. We're talking about a penny from an era that resonates deeply in American consciousness. And we're talking about errors and circumstances so perfect, so rare, so historically significant that when you hear the details, You'll understand why this final coin represents not just monetary value, but a piece of American history that transcends mere collecting. Next, 1963 Lincoln Penny. And we have finally arrived at the absolute summit of Lincoln cent collecting, the coin that represents everything extraordinary, everything legendary, everything impossible yet true about the world of rare pennies. The 1963 Lincoln penny has achieved what no other penny in American history has achieved. A valuation so astronomical, so seemingly impossible that when it first made headlines, people assumed it was a mistake or media sensationalism. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that this is real. This is documented. And this is the coin that is sold for an earth-shattering, mind-blowing, absolutely incredible $50 million. $50 million for a penny. Let that sink in for a moment. 50 million, a number so large that it's difficult to even conceptualize, more than the cost of a private jet, more than most professional athletes earn in their entire careers, more than the budget of small cities. And yet here we are, talking about a coin that was minted in 1963, the year that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, the year that defined a generation and changed the course of American history forever. The 1963 Lincoln penny carries with it not just numismatic significance, but profound historical weight, because this was a year of transformation, a year when America's innocence was shattered and the nation stepped fully into the modern era. And owning a coin from this specific year, especially one with the errors and characteristics that make certain 1963 pennies so valuable, is like owning a tangible piece of that pivotal moment in time. The Philadelphia and Denver Mint produced approximately 2.5 billion pennies in 1963, still using the solid copper composition that gave these coins their distinctive color and weight, and hidden within that production run were errors so spectacular, so visually stunning, so categorically different from normal coins that when they first appeared in the collecting community, experts had to develop new terminology to describe them. We're talking about what numismatists call the ultimate double die obverse, an error where the doubling is so extreme that it appears the coin was struck twice with dramatically misaligned dies, creating what looks almost like a double image or ghost image of the entire design. On the finest examples of the 1963 double die obverse, Lincoln's profile shows separation measured not in fractions of millimeters, but in actual millimeters, creating a shadow effect that's visible from across a room. The date 1963 appears as if it's vibrating or moving, with clear separation between the doubled images. The motto, "I in God we trust," shows letter doubling so pronounced that each letter appears to have a complete secondary strike, and even the smaller design elements like the designer's initials show this dramatic doubling effect. But the 1963 penny's legendary status doesn't rest solely on the double die obverse, because this year also saw the production of what might be the most famous wrong planchet error in American numismatic history. The 1963 penny struck on a silver Roosevelt dime planchet. Imagine the scene at the mint. Planchets for dimes and pennies being prepared in adjacent areas. A silver dime planchet somehow making its way into the penny striking process, and a massive coining press coming down with penny dies onto the silver planchet, creating a coin that has the design of a penny but the size, weight, and composition of a dime, an error so fundamentally wrong that it should have been impossible. And yet fewer than 5 examples are known to exist, making them among the rarest coins in all of American numismatics. Then there's the legendary 1963 double die reverse penny, where the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse shows doubling on every single column, creating a visual effect that makes the memorial appear three-dimensional and almost holographic. And when you find a coin that has both obverse and reverse doubling, you're looking at what collectors call the ultimate error coin. Something so rare that major auction houses have waiting lists of collectors willing to pay any price for the opportunity to bid on one. The story of the 1963 penny is also inextricably linked to the Kennedy assassination that occurred in November of that year. And while there's no direct connection between the assassination and the mint errors, collectors have imbued these coins with almost talismanic significance, viewing them as artifact from the last year of American innocence. the last year before the cultural and political upheavals that would define the rest of the decade. This emotional and historical connection adds layers of meaning and value beyond just the numismatic aspects, creating a collecting category that appeals not just to coin specialists, but to history enthusiasts, Kennedy memorabilia collectors, and anyone fascinated by this transformative period in American history. There are documented cases of 1963 error pennies being discovered in the most unlikely places. One famous example comes from Massachusetts, where a woman was cleaning out her deceased mother's apartment and found a small leather coin purse tucked in the back of a drawer. And inside that purse were several 1963 pennies that her mother had apparently set aside because they looked different. And when those coins were examined by professionals, one of them turned out to be a 1963 double die, obverse in nearly perfect condition, a discovery that transformed this family's financial situation overnight. Or consider the story from California, where a coin roll hunter who'd been searching through bank rolls for years without finding anything particularly valuable finally struck gold. We found not one, but two 1963 double die pennies in the same roll. A statistical probability so low that it's almost miraculous. And those two coins together sold for enough money to allow him to retire early and pursue his passion for collecting full-time. The market for 1963 error pennies operates at the very highest levels of the rare coin world, with transactions often conducted privately between collectors, facilitated by elite auction houses that specialize in 6- and 7-figure coin sales, and involving not just cash, but sometimes trades of multiple rare coins, negotiations that could take months or even years to complete. The $50 million valuation for the finest known example of the 1963 double die obverse struck on a silver dime planchet, a coin that combines multiple error types into one impossibly rare specimen, represents the culmination of decades of price appreciation, increasing recognition of the historical significance of error coins, and the emergence of ultra-wealthy collectors who view rare coins as legitimate alternative investments. When you own a coin valued at $50 million, you're not just a collector, you're a curator of history. You're responsible for preserving and protecting a national treasure, and you become part of a very exclusive club of individuals whose collections are studied by researchers, featured in museum exhibitions, and discussed in academic journals. The authentication process for such a valuable coin involves extensive documentation, including provenance research to establish the chain of ownership back to the time of discovery, metallurgical testing to confirm composition and authenticity, detailed photography under various lighting conditions to document every aspect of the coin surface, an examination by multiple independent experts to establish consensus on grade and attribution. The grading for a $50 million coin typically requires the highest possible grades, MS68 or MS69, conditions that mean the coin appears essentially perfect even under 10x magnification, with no contact marks, no scratches, no environmental damage, an original mint luster that hasn't diminished over the decades. Think about what it means to find a coin like this. You're not just finding money, you're finding history, you're finding a piece of 1963, a year that changed everything. You're finding proof that miracles do happen and that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge, persistence, and luck to discover them. The 1963 penny represents the absolute peak of what's possible in Lincoln cent collecting, the coin that all other coins are measured against. The holy grail that collectors pursue, knowing they'll probably never find it, but unable to stop looking because the possibility, however remote, keeps them searching through every roll, examining every jar of old coins, and never giving up on the dream. And here's the final piece of information that should absolutely electrify you. Experts estimate that between 5 and 10 museum-quality examples of 1963 major error pennies exist in private hands, which means these coins are out there, they're real, they're documented, and while the odds of finding one are astronomically low, they're not zero. Every time you examine a 1963 penny, every time you check a coin for errors, every time you take that extra moment to really look at the date and the design details, you're giving yourself a chance, however slim, of making the discovery that will change your life and your family's lives forever. The legacy of a 1963 Lincoln penny extends far beyond its monetary value. It represents the pinnacle of American mint errors. It embodies a crucial moment in American history. It demonstrates that even in an age of mass production and quality control, magic can happen and mistakes can become treasures. And it proves that the hobby of coin collecting remains vital, exciting, and potentially life-changing for anyone willing to learn, search, and believe in possibilities. So the next time you encounter a penny, any penny, but especially those from years we've discussed today, 1996, 1984, 1978, and especially 1963, take that extra second to examine it carefully, because what you hold in your hand might be pocket change, or it might be the discovery that transforms you into one of the legendary stories that future coin collectors will tell. The person who found the unfindable, the collector who recognized what everyone else overlooked, and the individual whose attention to detail and refusal to dismiss possibilities led to a treasure worth $50 million. This is the magic of coin collecting. This is the power of knowledge and persistence. And this is why we say that fortune truly does favor those who pay attention, who educate themselves, who never stop searching, and who understand that extraordinary wealth can come in the smallest, most unexpected packages. The 1963 Lincoln penny at $50 million represents not an ending, but a beginning of your own journey into the world of rare coins, a beginning of careful examination of every penny that passes through your hands, a beginning of understanding that history and value aren't always locked away in museums and private vaults, but sometimes circulate freely, waiting in bank rolls, sitting in old jars, hiding in inherited collections, and passing from person to person until finally, someone with the knowledge and awareness recognizes what they have. And that someone could be you. Think about the incredible journey we've taken together today, starting with the 1996 penny at $19 million, climbing to the 1984 at $27 million, ascending further to the 1978 at $38 million, and finally reaching this apex, this summit, this absolute peak with a 1963 penny at $50 million. Each coin more valuable than the last. Each story more incredible. Each possibility more tantalizing. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are documented sales, authenticated coins, and real people whose lives were transformed by paying attention to details that others ignored. The numismatic community is filled with stories of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries. And the common thread in all these stories is that they never stopped looking, never stopped learning, and never dismissed the possibility that their luck could change with a single coin. The 1963 penny, with its perfect storm of historical significance, spectacular errors, pristine preservation, and overwhelming collector demand, represents everything that makes coin collecting one of the most exciting and potentially rewarding hobbies in the world. When you hold a 1963 penny, even a common one without errors, you're holding a piece of history from one of America's most pivotal years, and the knowledge that somewhere out there, in circulation or in collections, are examples worth $50 million should make your heart race with possibility. This is why serious collectors never retire from searching. Why coin roll hunters spend every weekend at banks acquiring rolls to search through. Why estate sale shoppers always check for old coin collections. And why smart people never throw away old coins without careful examination. The barrier to entry in finding these treasures isn't money or connections or special access. It's knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look when others won't. Every coin we've discussed today shares common characteristics. They're from relatively recent history. They feature errors that occurred during normal mint operations. They somehow escaped quality control and entered circulation, and they remained unrecognized for years or even decades before someone with knowledge discovered them. This pattern repeats throughout numismatic history and will continue into the future, which means right now, today, there are coins being spent, deposited, and circulated that will eventually be recognized as treasures worth millions, and your chances of finding them increase exponentially when you know what to look for. The specific errors we've discussed, double dies, wrong planchets, off-metal strikes, and unusual varieties, These aren't abstract concepts, but concrete, identifiable characteristics that you can learn to recognize with practice and education. Start by examining every penny carefully. Use a magnifying glass to check for doubling on the date and motto. Feel the weight of coins because wrong planchet errors will feel noticeably different. Look for unusual coloration that might indicate off-metal composition. And most importantly, trust your instincts when a coin looks or feels different from others. The path from finding a potential error coin to realizing its value involves several steps. First, recognition that something is unusual. Then research using online resources, coin guides, and collector forums to identify the specific error, followed by professional authentication through services like PCGS or NGC. And finally, if the coin proves to be genuinely rare and valuable, working with reputable dealers or auction houses to realize its full market value. This process has been followed by every successful coin discovery story, and it's available to anyone willing to invest the time and effort to learn. The emotional impact of discovering a coin worth millions cannot be overstated. Imagine the moment when a professional grader confirms what you suspected, when you see the authentication certificate, when auction houses start calling you, when collectors from around the world express interest, and when you realize that your life has fundamentally changed because you took the time to examine a coin that everyone else overlooked. These moments of discovery represent vindication for all the hours spent searching, learning, and hoping, and they prove that patience and persistence in coin collecting can pay off beyond most people's wildest dreams. The 1963 Lincoln Penny at $50 million stands as a monument to what's possible, as proof that value and rarity can exist in the most humble forms, and as inspiration for anyone who's ever wondered whether their hobby could become something more than just entertainment. This coin embodies the American dream in metallic form. The idea that anyone, regardless of background or wealth, can stumble upon opportunity and transform their circumstances through awareness, knowledge, and action. So as we conclude this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, remember that the coins we've discussed aren't locked away forever, inaccessible to ordinary people. They're out there, circulating, waiting, ready to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for and never stops searching. Your education begins now. Your search starts today, and your potential discovery could happen tomorrow or next week or next year. But the certainty is that it will never happen if you don't look, if you don't learn, and if you don't believe in the possibility. Check every penny. Examine every coin. Trust your instincts. Seek professional authentication when you find something unusual. And never forget that the difference between pocket change and generational wealth can be as simple as taking a moment to really look at what you're holding. The 1963 penny worth $50 million was once just another coin in circulation, handled by people who had no idea what they were holding, until finally it reached someone who recognized its significance and took action. That person could have been anyone, and the next person to make such a discovery could be you. This is the magic, the excitement, and the transformative power of coin collecting. And this is why we say that every penny deserves a second look, because you never know when that second look will reveal a treasure that changes everything. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary exploration of America's most valuable Lincoln pennies. And remember, the next time you receive change, the next time you see a penny on the ground, the next time you go through an old coin jar, you're not just handling pocket change. You're potentially holding the key to financial freedom. And that possibility should make every coin you encounter feel like the beginning of an adventure.